The U.S. government has lost its AAA bond rating for the first time in history. It's now a AA+, a good rating, but no longer the best rating in the world, no longer the safest investment in the world. The consequences of this will be to cost the taxpayers money, because the U.S. government will now pay a higher interest rate to borrow. What can be done about that? How much will it cost? It's impossible for me to say. I'm not an expert in finance, but I am a political scientist, and I've read the report from Standard & Poor's, and I can tell you what they say, and I can tell you what needs to be done politically. Credit rating is based on two things: ability to pay and willingness to pay. The U.S. government's debt is rising, but it's still below the total national income. Ability to pay is not an immediate concern of the credit rating agencies. It is a concern potentially down the road if the government doesn't make some changes in the short term. Willingness to pay is a bit different. The government took a long time, went to the deadline. It went past the deadline, really. The debt ceiling of the U.S. government should have been raised in May. That's when we were at the debt ceiling. August 2nd was the point at which the government could no longer move money from one account to another, basically play one credit card off against another. And that was the date on which Congress finally acted. It was irresponsible. I can't use any other word. It was irresponsible to take that long to make those decisions, to reach that resolution. And that's what caused, in the most immediate sense, the drop in the U.S. government's credit rating. Had the debt ceiling been simply straight up increased in a clean vote back in April or May, we wouldn't have this cost in front of us right now. But what does the report say? The report says two things. It says down the road the U.S. government needs to reduce its deficit, and it needs to reduce it sharply. How? The report says that that's a political decision, but it singles out one thing, and that is Congress's extension of the Bush tax cuts from 2001, their extension that was made at the beginning of this year. It indicates that they don't believe, the credit raters, don't believe that Congress will allow those cuts to expire at the end of 2012 when they're scheduled to expire. So they've told us that's the most short-run way to save us, the taxpayers, money down the road, by paying more taxes now. Not much of a trade-off, I know, but that's what the report says, and I certainly can't change that. Further down the road, what needs to be done? Spending needs to be cut, certainly. The big three areas of spending: Social Security, Medicare, military. There have to be adjustments made in all three areas, or the U.S. government's not going to be able to sustain itself and the prosperity of the country down the road. But here's the problem. Cutting spending in the short run will hinder the economy's ability to grow. Failure to cut spending in the long run will hinder the economy's ability to grow. In other words, a complex set of political decisions have to be made. This is the underlying problem. The underlying reason for the drop in the credit rating is that the credit agencies can see, the credit rating agencies, Standard & Poor's in particular, can see that we have a political problem. The U.S. government is not speaking with one voice. It's not reaching consensus in the national interest. So while a complex and politically complicated, ideologically contradictory series of decisions have to be made involving Social Security, Medicare, military, and taxes, none of those are going to be popular decisions. All are going to be necessary decisions. If we have the political will, we can get the AAA rating back probably within a month. If we don't have the political will, this could be the beginning of a long-term significant problem, much more significant than any short-term deficit problem or even midterm deficit, middle-run deficit problem that we now have. If you found these political commentaries to be interesting, please feel free to post questions or comments, and we can engage in further dialogue.